You? Trent. Yeah, he's back asleep. Yeah, fair enough. Sorry, have you got your thing on? I can hear you, but can our live audience hear? What I'm asking. Hold on.
Here we go. Here we go.
Alright, cool. Very happy. Yeah, so where were we?
Why are there two people? Is that...
It's me and you.
Oh, got you.
I've tricked myself sometimes. I've been like, oh, look, there's one person already on there. Cool, and it's like me. Like when I first started doing it.
Oh, how sad is... Oh. Oh. Well, at least, do you know what I mean? That psychologically geared you to be on point with what you were saying. Because I think that's nice.
Oh, look, honestly, like, it I wouldn't say I'm pro by any means yet, but I definitely felt a lot more pressure at the start.
Sorry, I was being dramatic. I mean...
No, but you know what I mean? Like, sometimes I'll jump on and I'll be like, oh, okay, now I'm talking to whoever's out there listening, and what do I say? And I'll just be like, oh,
I know, you
hi.
say the awkwardest shit. That's why I feel like... Well, not awkwardest shit. Like, I think you say, like, just random shit that you know that's not even, like... You know, like... engaging, like you'll say something like 2 stars, wow. Or yeah, but I think that maybe that's because I don't think you're boring per se. Like I think you just need stimuli, like you need a stimulus. So
yeah.
I think perhaps like if you want me to be more critical, yeah, just like be engaging, like create fun, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, sometimes like it's a bit hard to like, you know, talking with you, obviously, like I can just bounce off whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's the not knowing who's watching.
Yeah, it gets to you, hey?
It's like, you know, I need to adapt my language to the person that I'm talking to, and if I don't know who it is, then you're just doing this like you're basically just representing yourself to nothing, you know, to no one.
Well, yeah, perhaps you need a different... Yeah, and that's where, like, I think that's why my Twitch question came up. Do you know what I mean? Like, PC, because I think it is a platform that allows you to differentiate yourself, you know, like, allows you to... because, like, you could buy a green screen, for example, and alter your video if you're going to be sitting in the, you know, the stream or something. Or you can put, like, a green screen and just have, like, autumn leaves in the background or something. Like, that personalization is what is innately engaging, and that can be quite cool. But yeah,
I was considering like,
cool. Anyways, like differentiating. So.
I was considering doing like getting like a cardboard cutout and putting it like next to the TV. So whenever I didn't know how to like picture the audience, I could have this picture of like Jim Carrey sitting there. I could be like, "Hey, well, guess what?" and just like pretend I'm talking to him. Or like having little messages around the TV of different topics I could bring up. Or
see? That is funny. That is funny. Like, and I think as somebody like, I'm always, do you know what I mean? Like, I think that would engage me as like a weirdo. So like, I think it would probably engage some of your friends that are like weird too.
Yeah.
Like, if you have weird friends. Well, I'm guessing and I think that goes back to like that question. Oh no, actually, never mind. But yeah, that's actually a real cool idea. Maybe you can do that if you ever get a like good PC and then start Twitch streaming or something. Or like, yeah, and do like a Jim Carrey. Like, that'd be pretty cool. It'd be funny. See, cool. Good idea. Good idea, sadistic. Brayden.
Thanks, buddy. Um, I knew your first name and I've forgotten it.
That's okay. I'm used to being in the background. Just like in the background of this video chat, this broadcast thing.
Are you the biggest spoon?
Hello! Hello, I'm in the background, please. I'm one of those, what are they called? Like, those, what are those extras? I'm an extra in the background of a movie or a broadcast. Hello!
No, look, I'll get it. I remember your name not being as colourful as you are.
Oh, yeah, it's very boring. Yeah, kudos to my parents. Hello, parents. I'm very boring and bland. No wonder why I've been so sheltered, because you're so boring.
I dare you to share this video with your parents.
That's, no. Next topic. I bet, I would. I'm that edgy, I would. But the thing is they wouldn't know how to skip. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding, never mind. But, yeah. What would your... See, your mum seems quite educated, yeah. Like, the fact that she did go back to get her social work, is it a diploma, or is it, like, a full-on bachelor's of social work, or... Like, what is it?
To be honest, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what she did. But it got her where she is, and she's gone from a couple of different jobs like that to another.
Cute.
So like she's obviously got a big heart and likes to help people and stuff.
Really? Oh, good.
I just think, yeah, she needs to look after herself first.
I agree. It's like, I love the saying, you don't give from a place of poverty.
Sorry?
I love the saying, like, you don't give from a place of poverty.
Yeah.
Like, if you ain't rich, why the heck are you giving away your home? Like, or stuff like that.
Basically, if you're really struggling, I think she does alright for herself now, but like, yeah, I don't know. I find it fucking head fuck trying to imagine her giving out life advice to people. Like.
And that's what's cool, right? Like, I think that's kind of cool on the flip side. Like, if you approach it from like a kind of like you're an insider, like you're almost like a whistleblower, but you're not going to whistleblow because that would be destructive to the reputation, so you ought to just chill out. And like, but it is funny if you imagine it through that lens. Like, oh my god, it's like, do you know what I mean? If you're a secret crack addict and then you're giving like advice that helps people, presuming that it is charitable, that she would help. Like, it'd be funny to see like these people change their whole entire lives, jump into gear, and then all of a sudden, like maybe 100 years later, they find out, oh my god, that whole advice that I based my whole life around, they were crack addicts or something. Like that's ironic, right? As we discussed, it's funny. I think that's awesome. That makes it even better.
Well, like, if it works for them, then that's great. Like, if they're secretly crack addicts, but they can put on a persona like they're all together and help other people get together. I mean, like, kudos to you. Smoke all the crack you want. But if you're like dealing with young, like, vulnerable people, and you're like, yeah, take up crack smoking. It's good for you.
Don't make it sound so extreme. Okay, Brandon. Like, very extreme.
Swinging to the end of the pentagram once again.
And I think that's quite interesting, because I was thinking about as well, like, what you were saying to do with rationale, like science, and like why it was the case that you were you can stand behind your science and say like blah blah blah. You know, I think we were analyzing two different things, like especially when I bring in probability. I was like,
Yeah.
it's the case that it's this way. It was the same thing in theory. Like, I could probably make a case it was the same thing. But that aside, I think you were more talking about confidence intervals. So you were looking at what are the chances that the information that you've gathered comes from a population mean that is to be presumed. Basically, it comes from a populace that there would be no effect for, or something along those lines. Well, the variance for that mean comes from some sort of populace that is not different from the mean. That's a better way to say it. So basically you're saying 95% chances, or like 90% of the time, these people that are on Facebook talking about 5G being all crazy, 90% of the time that confidence interval can be supported by some data to say like, hey, you are indeed damaging the society and you should not open your gob. Whereas I think I was looking at it from like, oh, like what is the chances that that, for example, your granddad or who was it, uncle, or
Yeah.
who was it? Yeah,
Uncle.
your uncle. Let's just promote him to granddad. No. He's from that generation. No, just kidding. But yeah, your uncle comes from general population that a some population that's just fanatic. Like they're not representative of the general populace. But that aside, yeah, I think that's what I was trying to do. So that clears it up. For you viewers, if you ever listen to this in the future, if you think, what dumb people? Yeah.
I don't know, I just think, you know, like, I've spent quite
Oh my
a fair
God.
bit of time, like reprogramming my brain from the indoctrination that I got over the years from Christianity and stuff.
Really? Yeah.
And it still pops up, like, you know, the tendency of your mind in like a chaotic state, an anxious state, is to go back to what it was like brought up with. And so there's times there's times in which, like, when you're not thinking your best, that you for a moment revert back and fall into the same traps.
Yeah.
And like, that's why I can see that it must be a struggle for people who haven't challenged their beliefs as much as I have, to always revert back to that. And to have someone try to bring up that fear back in me and be like, you know, I hope that you come back to the Lord, basically, before the end times and stuff, otherwise it'll be a real shame. It's like, it's really just trying to like undo all the progress that I've made for myself. It's like if you grew up being molested by your parents, let's say, and then you spent all this time like one, figuring out that was wrong, figuring out that you're a victim of it, and then getting yourself like back on track and positive and healthy, then to have your parents come back and be like, hey, no, actually, like, you know, this sexually deviant like manipulation of you was the right thing, and like you should really come back to it. You know, you just kind of want to punch him in the face and be like, no, you're not fucking manipulating me or molesting me anymore. I'm not gonna let you do it to anyone. And so like, I have a kind of vengeance back on it, where like, this way of thinking is bad for fucking people, and even the people spouting it are victims of it too. But you know, they're the perpetrators of it. So, you know, if I look a bit fucking like I'm mocking and I'm being mean. It's like, well, is it really as bad as the fucking shit that like he's trying to drag me and other people into? I don't think so.
Yeah. I think that is some deep stuff. Yeah. I think yeah, any reversion back to older or more primitive kind of forms of thinking that weren't the best, it's always good to just avoid that altogether. But it sucks when you do have whole old patterns and old triggers trying to, and perhaps, and even in an unconscious way, trying to drag you back to that. Because I think sometimes, like, looking at intentions, if some of these patterns are, like, so intrinsic to who they are and they don't even realize it, then some credit can be given that that is something that's outside of the control that you can exert. So yeah, that's a really tough one. Shit. But what's super awesome though, actually, what's beautiful actually, Brayden, is that you can recognize that. Because I think that's the biggest first step to being self-aware. It's to look at, oh my god, I'm feeling these states, I'm feeling these things urge back up, and I know that I'm better than this, and I know that I shouldn't be reacting the way that I'm perhaps about to react. And then you can quickly pivot it. You can quickly go, oh, I want to redirect it quickly. And perhaps that's how
I don't know. I feel pretty justified in being aggressive on the matter. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's like telling, yeah. Again, would you tell a victim of some sexual crime that they're not allowed to be angry towards their aggressor?
never, yeah.
Like, you know, sure, them being able to just accept it and like be ultra zen Yoda, like, oh yeah, like, nah, like, I don't let it affect me anymore. Like, that's great, but like, if they go, nah, fuck that shit, I'm not gonna let them rape some other people. I'm not gonna stand by and let it happen.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know.
I think, and see, that's a really good point as well. I think if it was a situation that can be contextualized like that, and patterns can be developed to really undermine whatever's been going on, then yeah, I think it may be perhaps yeah, for like a utilitarian approach to be like, oh, no, we're cutting, like, I'm going to make it a life goal to, you know, really promote that. And that's where you see, like, perhaps categorized victims move for support platforms, you know, like actresses, like with a lot of like big names and stuff saying that these directors did this and that, and that there's kind of this implicit relation going on that's just unhealthy, and they kind of move forward. They were silent for many years, and then they move forward and try to pave a different change, and that's beautiful. I think it's beautiful, like regardless of when it happens, what happens, but I think it's beautiful that a chance was made to try to move the model, you know,
Yeah.
that's what self-care is to do. You know? Super good. So hey, if you feel that way, like you feel justified in a lot of some of those ideologies or something or whatnot, then more the power to ya, mate. Absolutely.
Cheers, buddy.
You're welcome.
I think a part of it is that people don't see the effect it has on people. Like, I think everyone's on board now that the church is like physically actually molested kids and stuff, and they're all like, oh, like, we're so offended by that and stuff. Like, you know, like, shit. You know, they're all on board with that stuff, but you know, this has been out for ages and people went on board with it for a long time. And it's all the psychological stuff that goes along with religion, people are still catching up with.
Yeah.
And it's only people who like have been through it or know people or like, you know, have a reasonably aware, you know, just awareness of stuff. Like, there's plenty of people that never grew up in the church and never were victims of it, but they could just see it for what it was and they get it.
Yeah.
I think especially people who, you know, Christians have like persecuted for generations and thousands of years, I think they get it pretty quickly.
And I think that really addresses like this idea that when it comes to addressing problems, like it needs to start at that systemic level where we look at what really is going wrong and really try to rip that out of the institution, because there are some institutionalized things that are absolutely wrong. Absolutely, no way about it. But
I just think it's corrupt to its core. Those beliefs.
Yeah.
Not many guys out there.
Yeah.
Do what you do.
I try to use a metaphor for people so that they get it, because like a lot of them will be like, oh, you know, my nice old grandma goes to church and she's not hurting anyone. Like, why would you be against her? And she's just a moderate Christian. Like, don't stress. And I'd be like, if you were Jewish, how would you feel about a moderate Nazi? You know, like, you know, like they just like identify as Nazis, and they go and catch up with them and have scones and coffees with their Nazi clubs and stuff, and they really idolize the scriptures of Hitler, but they don't hurt anyone. Like, they're not hurting any Jews, and they're not like, you know, running any concentration camps like they used to, and they look forward to that happening again, but. You know, now they just wear their swastika, and they wear their like SS uniform, and they reminisce of the good times that they used to have when Hitler was in power. Like, what do you got against that? It's like everything.
Yeah.
It's not even that. It's not even like, oh, they quietly gave it up. You know, it's that the rest of the world forced the Nazis out of power, and if they were capable of running concentration camps again and killing Jews, then they would do it, and they would do it happily, but they're just not capable of actually doing it the way that they used to do it. But, you know, you should be happy that they're not doing it anymore, like, as if this was some choice of theirs. Like, no, like, if Christians were in power the way that they used to be, you think they'd all be just bouncing up on stages and healing people, or do you think they'd be fucking torturing people and burning witches and shit? Like,
yeah, I suppose I think you've brought up some really key good points, and I think when looking at it, like, it to me, like, how I understood that is like, to what extent do modern people or certain people within their own bubbles perpetuate malignant behavior, perpetuate pockets of really adversive and dangerous ideologies, and perhaps the border for that and the variance between those borders can kind of ebb and flow, but at its core, if the institution or something is really, really corrupt, then it doesn't matter how much it can vary, it's effing bad. And I suppose in that regard, I think that's, in that regard, like, when it comes to trying to convince people that there are very corrupt ideologies that are taking place underneath their awareness, it depends on confirmation bias. It depends on their ability to recognize that it's not all dandy. Like, you could be a modern middle-aged grandma going to church and be moderate with your ideology, but at the end of the day, taken at its extreme, some of those values are insane. You don't have to perpetuate it, those extreme values, but you're supporting it passively by allowing it to occur. And I suppose if people took more active and less passive approaches to trying to exert like a causal influence to subvert something that's been accepted passively for years, all the power to you. And I think there are some good values that do come out of certain religious institutions and stuff, like caring for thy neighbour or something, maybe, if we would have not look at how their power has been exerted over the millennia, and if I've just been indoctrinated by Christianic values. But at the end of the day, any new model begins with innovation and a reassessment of what's been going on. And I think there's been some, and that was like, and I think I remember reading this beautiful book. It was called Boundaries of the Soul by June Singer. and Boundaries of the Soul by June Singer looked at analytical psychology, but anyways, it looked at this pastor, and this pastor of a religious church, and this pastor came to this this analytical professional and said, look, I'm having trouble accommodating the new people of this generation, the millennials, with the old, because the old people keep putting up their hands and saying, Pastor, this wasn't the old traditions, like you voicing at voicing at the kind of pedestal and saying all this stuff. That wasn't the way it was supposed to be done. It's supposed to be done in accordance to this Bible in this way, and you did it that way for many years. Why are you now changing it, and why are you now accommodating these millennials that aren't faithfully following the Lord's words as we are, perhaps? And the pastor was so upset by these comments by these people, but more particularly by this lawyer that raised the concern, this lawyer conservative that basically said what they said, and wrote letter after letter saying, you suck, you're horrible, you're not a correct pastor, you're not doing this, not doing that. And at the end of the day, what the analytical analyst said to Analazand was, to what degree are you identifying with your own personas and own roles? And when you assume that role of the pastor, you assume these certain expectations. And thus, when you assume these particular expectations, you have to assume that you need to be meeting their needs in some sort of indirect or direct way. And if that's the case, the clash isn't necessarily with you feeling, the lawyers and his words. It's more with, and I suppose that comes back to your question where you said you shouldn't tell the victim not to be angry, but you can also tell the victim, like, at the end of the day, the conflict does arise all the time in reality, and it's all about choosing different pathways for reactions, I suppose. And it's difficult, but like that kind of reactance from the pastor to the lawyer was him reacting to the lawyer's persona. Do you know what I mean? That lawyer persona, drilling it into him via letter after letter after letter, that you're not this correct pastor, you're not doing this correctly, you're not doing that, as opposed to the millennials that did feel connected and more at tune with a particular ideology. So I thought that was quite relevant in the sense that it was cool that guy sought out help and stuff, but you know, like, awareness is such a tricky thing. I don't know, but you're right, like, there is also like a power differential that goes on in institutions that should be questioned. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that's why with trans, for example, like, in their backlash that they get, and I don't know what you said about that. Didn't you say something interesting?
Yeah, we were talking about it, and then we got distracted. But and I'm willing to like go into that a bit deeper, because like my intention isn't to like, you know, be oppressive or to tell anyone how to live or to limit anyone's the scope of what they can do. I think just I'm more coming at it from a perspective of just like scientific accuracy, basically. And that's when you started talking, and then I cut you off. So, if there's more you want to add to that.
I think, because, you accentuated the point of like, this is what science is, this is kind of like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's almost to do with properties. Like, it was taken in account of like, I would say being sex critical, you know, like males are males and females are females. And I think sometimes with that, in essence, it's just tackling physicalism, which is atoms. And if it is the case that women have properties that differentiate themselves from men, to what degree can those values be changed? And to what degree can they be manipulated? And these roles that are assigned to them? Because at the end of the day, to be civil, we have to assume expectations, we have to assume some sort of role. So to what degree do these roles that we understand create values that influence the way that we see particular sexes biologically and empirically? and I think that's changing slowly but surely across time. Like we're seeing new science be invented that can enable particular men, for example, to transition to become more feminine-like.
Yeah.
But the direct question that needs to be asked is, what is a woman? And I think that those questions, especially when I said, like, I think the better question is to ask, what is a woman? Because that, in essence, addresses the nature of womanhood. And that's a tricky question because with some men, especially in the transgenderism community and like LGBT community, to be trans might be, to be a woman, for example, might be to put on a dress, you know? And I think you started to touch upon those slippery slopes with it starts entering bad stages where you've got grown people regressing to a childlike infancy where they're like crazy. But around that point it's like with women, can I just put on a dress and be a woman? And that, I don't know, like I don't even know how to begin to address that question.
I think like you pretty much like the language and the terrain that you just mapped out helps me to put it into words that I can work with and try and be more specific about my point, and that is that, like, you know, there's biologically what men and women are physically, and then there's the roles that we've assigned to them as societies, which people are interpreting for themselves as to how those roles influence their personal experiences. And I think that's why I've got it different, is because because to me, and what I learnt was equality growing up, is that it doesn't matter which gender you are, you can choose what your role is for yourself. And when they're saying that the role I feel that my personality attracts to is this thing, that means that I feel more like a female than a male, or the other way around. That to me says, like, the part of gender which is irrelevant, or it is up to you personally, is then the thing that they're identifying with more than
the essence of
so like, you know, you can be a male, but you want to be or you just identify as being feminine, and, you know, let's say you're a hairdressing nurse who's into fashion and everything generically female, or let's say gay or whatever, like, good for you. It doesn't matter what's between your legs. You choose what you want to be. It's your destiny. But those people who say, like, because I'm into those things, that means that the genitals associated with that equals this, that to me is like got it all back to front.
Amen. You
hearing what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I capitulated that too, but but I that was my understanding of what you said, and I think that's good, because I think like being more clear with the language we use is very, very important to having conversations about these very matters without people losing the morals and tips. But I'm gonna get started with that. I think if people reassess not only like their understanding of what those roles kind of incorporate, I think what if they looked more at what motivates them to be influenced by those roles. And a lot of the time when we look at like some things that have been kind of institutionalized and lingered, it's fear. Fear motivates a lot of perception of threat, you know, and that's why change can be so scary, because as you've brought up multiple times, chaos is scary for a lot of people, and we have to be occupied in like a continuum between order and chaos, and if we can't order it, then it's chaos, and that uncertainty kills a lot of people, so that's not good. So looking at perception of threats is very enabling for us biologically as a species, but those perception of threats assess power levels and power differential that can occur within those. And when it comes to cultural values and versus power differentials, things that motivate action out of a place of discomfort as opposed to not out of a place of change, then cultural values can be destroyed in certain respects as well, or re-enabled. And I think the biggest thing that I think when it comes to looking at the essence of things with like females and males and stuff is basically if it was the case that everybody felt accepted, for example like females with equal pay, blah blah blah, if they felt accepted and seen and socially included in a lot of things, why the heck is the conversation happening? Do you know what I mean? If people were safe and recognised and accepted, why is it the case that bad things keep happening? You know, like, and I think that is like it's just enough to say that essentially something's going awry sometimes with people, and yeah, I don't know.
Look, I've just recently had like a bit of a situation with some friends where like a mate's missus considers my views to be basically toxic male stuff.
Oh,
and this is because of how I don't want to go too much into it on live stuff, but like basically one of the things that she considered was toxic was that on my views on gender pay gap, which is
What is that?
well basically that like the way that gap has been calculated is you get like the average pay of men and the average pay of women, and you compare the two and you see that they're different, and there's no like other variables being cross-referenced in this. Like it's not that it's the same job and the same hours getting
The same people.
yeah, like it's basically comparing what the majority of these people are doing as careers with each other, and more men are in roles that that pay more, but they're also in more dangerous jobs and more essential jobs. And so you've got people who can choose what their career is, and out of men and women, men are picking more roles or falling into more roles that are higher paying. Maybe it could be said that they're on average more aggressive in choosing or getting to paths that they want to do. But if we really wanted to fix the pay gap in that way of looking at it, then we would be like basically forcing women into roles that they might not want to do. If the majority of women want to be hairdressers, let's say, or not even the majority, but a large minority of them want to do roles that aren't necessarily high paying, that's what they want to do, then we shouldn't be punishing or accusing men who happen to be garbage truck drivers of being sexist because they're doing something that they know is a higher pay, even if they're not doing something that they particularly love. And I think to some degree women, I don't know if it's women or just like this is just the way the numbers roll out, that they've gone into careers that they want to do more. And then the ones that haven't, let's say, and this isn't just me saying it, this is like some legit statistics that have come back, are saying that women, even in really good high paying jobs, get to 30 and they earn heaps, they're quite successful, and they ask themselves what do they want out of their life. Do they want to keep doing this till they're like 50, 60? or do they want to like slow down and have a family? And most of them, and good for them, want to have a family. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the thing is, if you're going to have a family and you're going to be the primary carer, you then don't earn the same amount as those who continue on in their career and continue to earn heaps. If you want to be a CEO of a company, you have to be one of the types of people who give up basically their whole life towards that goal. And I think it's just easier for men because men don't have that same pressure to be the primary carers. I'm not saying they shouldn't be the primary carers, or that if they choose to be, that they shouldn't do it. I'm just saying, like, biologically there is more pressure on women to do it. And if I could share that burden with them and, you know, produce milk that a baby could drink, then like sure, I would do it. But I think that's something that's like outside of anyone's control, and it's certainly not like dictated to them by men.
See, I disagree completely with what you're saying.
Okay,
and
so tell me where you disagree.
I disagree with the analyses. Like, I think the stats are probably there with what you're saying. Like, if I was to look at the articles that you're citing, I think you're right. But I think what you're addressing isn't the point. It's beside the point. I think that women have been historically abused, and I think that can involve roles, but they've been historically abused.
Sure.
Do you agree? Yep. Yes or no?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So do you think historically, because they've been abused, they perhaps may be in a disadvantaged position?
Yes.
Okay, so if that's the case, then I think breaking down that further would be like, is there any perpetuated historic abuses that could be taking place that we're not aware of in the workplace?
Of course. But do I think that makes up the majority of the pay gap? No.
Yeah, and see, that's where I say that you're looking at a different argument altogether. Because I think a lot of the time, people aren't clear with what they're saying. Like, your partner's wife, or partner's wife,
your mate's partner.
Your mate's partner won't be looking at it in your way because she's not looking at the distribution of the means of the pay gaps between careers, between individuals, between everything else that differentiates them from the populace. All she's looking at is the mean of the distribution for women in the workplace, which is completely different because you can randomly select all these women and they could be getting fairly unpaid, but then you can resample all of them in the context of other populaces that kind of make up that populace. Because if you take it in terms of like rehabilitation of offenders, right, in the prison, if I put them through a rehabilitation program that orientates them differently, their risk for reoffending, if I re-put them through a program that changes the mean and makes it statistically significant that they're not going to reoffend, or they're less likely to reoffend, have I not just created a new population? Or I've looked at, I've created a new population kind of through a different model. And if that's the case, if we reapply that to what we're saying about the age gap, I think that distribution of all the means of all the possible outcomes for differentiating these women is an entirely different argument and ought not to be looked at. I just think the basis of what a lot of people say when they say like women are treated poorly in the workplace and don't get the fair enough wage, I just interpret it as a really simple saying that they're trying to address historic abuse. And if you're on that wavelength, you're on that wavelength. But if you try to attack that historic abuse argument, then you're going down a different strand. But I suppose you're differentiating historic abuse to a certain degree, but I don't think anyone in their sane mind would try to lessen that historic abuse that they have received and then apply it, because A and B is entirely different. Like, historic abuse in the past is different from historic abuse in the present, but that doesn't mean its non-existence and the power exerted between historic abuse and the present is any less or any more or whatever. It could be a lighter form of it, but I'm guessing with how long it takes America to get rid of their racism, right? They got abolished that in the end of the 19th century, and they're still massively racist because there's pockets of bias-ass people in their country that don't want to progress. So if we take that as a general populace, which a lot of studies do, it's all focused on the American populace, a lot of studies and stats, that if it's taken them so effing goddamn long to convert certain basic rights that are now considered basic rights, how long will it take us to address this wage gap phenomenon? And that's just like beside the point again. But that's why I disagree with you, but I think you're arguing a different point.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've like stayed on that point or whether like what you've said we've addressed it, because like a lot of what you said I've agreed with, but that's not the point that I think's in effect. And if we are arguing a different point, or if society's arguing a different point, then that's good. Let's argue that point, but don't call it the other point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, see, it's simple. Not simple, but I think it's people being retarded. That's honestly what I think it is. I think most people don't have the capacity to seek out informed information about correlated subjects to whatever they're discussing. So a lot of what they say is part truths. And if they were to break it down, they'd realize what they're saying is probably less accurate than they think they're saying. And I think it seems like, to me, that's what's happening in this situation with your partner. It's not that you're both not right or anything. It's that vagueness between what you guys are both arguing about, seemingly, could be.
We weren't even arguing about it. Like, I'll put a little bit more context to it. I sent my mate a video about that showed a guy who's a clinical psychologist. You might know of him, Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson, yeah, of course.
And he was arguing against that Kathy Newman. And
wait,
minute
that's
after
propaganda.
minute,
You can't do that.
What?
That's propaganda.
What is?
That's propaganda, because
Which
even
way?
though he's informed... How long was the video you sent?
20 minutes.
Oh, that's all right, actually.
So the interview, it's an interview on BBC, and
Yeah,
minute
I've seen
after
it.
minute, she's going,
Destroys it.
so you're saying this, so you're saying this, so you're saying this, and being like straw manning him second after second, and he's like, no, putting it factually and accurate, and then has a moment where he's got her, and they have a laugh and a chuckle, and then she goes straight back to it again. But I think it's, in a way, he represents a lot of what males feel on the topic, where like I'm leaving out all the bigots and all the fuckwits out of this point, because there's plenty of them, and I'm not talking about them like they're fuckwits, they're racist, they're sexist, whatever it is, alright? Because I don't agree with them. But the majority of males who are doing the right thing and want the best for everyone, treating everyone equal, are still being lumped in with being oppressors, even when they're doing everything they can to give everyone a step up, to help out their mates, to be fair to people they don't know, to be considerate of any biases they might have, like all the things that you can do to be just a good human being, and they're still being treated as if they're oppressing women, and I think that's not fair.
Yeah. See, I think you're right. Like, there is a degree of framing that goes into language that would influence a conversation. So men do, in fact, feel oppressed as well, through this constant reminder that they were oppressors, or that may still be oppressors. But
well, that they definitely are, and you need to check your privilege now, motherfucker.
But the point still remains, I think, because I think the reason why I don't think it's right, I personally wouldn't think it's right for you to send that interview, is because it's biased. I've seen the interview. I know Kathy Newman talked about lobsters far too much, and I read his book, and I know exactly what he says about crustaceans.
Yeah.
and their anatomy towards being akin to our biological natures. Okay, I've read the article. I've read the book. I've read
Yeah.
3/4 of the book before I gave it away. But the point where I leave it
3/4.
out.
So you really
3/4.
don't like him?
No, I like him. I appreciate his ideas. That doesn't make me necessarily a fan or anything. I just like reading a lot and reading all different sorts of people. And I think obviously there's a degree of resonance there when I say, oh, I must have liked something he said because I bought his fucking book. But that beside the point, like, I think that interview that categorized Kathy Newman as this kind of libertarian that's trying to strawman, I think that's a little unfair to send because
Well, I mean, I
do
sent
think
him the video to show
Yeah,
him
you're right,
to show
you're
him
right.
what Jordan Peterson is like, not anything to do with Kathy or what women are like or anything like that. But what I'm guessing is that she either watched it with him or he's interpreted it a certain way and discussed with her. See, here's one of the things, like, me and the missus, we have separate bank accounts. Right?
What?
We always have had, and it was her idea to begin with.
Interesting.
Alright, we used to do pretty much everything separate. Like, groceries, cooking, all this. From when we first started, we had our own individual lives, and then we would share our space and our emotions and our, those things with each other. But we were responsible for ourselves, and that was her idea. This was how she wanted things to be, and even when I wanted to put them together, she didn't want to do it. Right? So when I have someone interpret that as I'm controlling the finances because I'm a toxic male, I think that's like discrimination there to begin, like just to start with.
Yeah.
And then they combine that with the fact that I think Jordan Peterson's like really incredible intellect, and he's got views on things that I disagree with for sure. Like, he's pro-Christian stuff, and
He was. No wonder why you have idea. But that's interesting. I didn't even connect the dots. So, because you do watch Jordan Peterson, obviously you have an opinion on transgenderism, right? Because he was infamous for playing the argument that the government ought not to be involved in identity politics, which is basically what transgenderism concerns itself with, and pronouns.
Well, especially, like, they shouldn't dictate what language you are to use, and they shouldn't make it law. But he says pretty much every time he talks about it is that if he was dealing with an individual, he would respect their needs, but he doesn't want to be compelled by law to use words, basically. And like, I'm sure that, like, if you only heard about him and you happen to be trans, chances are you're probably not going to like him. You're just going to think
he was trying to get that beautiful. No, yeah, and that's why I like him. Like, I think there is a degree of refreshing nature to what he's saying, but I think at the end of the day, like, when it comes to exciting a riot, you have to excite a riot. Like, if you're going to be somebody that's going to address the elephant in the room, you have to address the goddamn elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And take the fall. And that's what makes me so sad. Have you seen some of his updates on Facebook? They're quite reassuring. They're quite cool. Did you see his update on the psychological significance for the biblical stories and how...
I've watched a few of those, and like I actually like them quite a bit because he puts it into a context.
You're a big fat nerd. That's what
You're
that is.
a fat nerd.
Well, I haven't watched all of them or more. Like, I've watched maybe 1 or 2 or 7, but beside the point, nah.
Well, I forget which ones I've seen, which one I haven't. But like, in general,
helpful.
I find he's a very intriguing man to listen to. Like, he's obviously a fucking intelligent person. To make me like interested in a topic that I've like basically not seen anyone talk on the topic of and be interesting for so long, he can actually put biblical stuff into a context that is relatable and understandable and something that you can get something out of, even if you don't believe in the literal truth of all of it.
Exactly. And do you know what? I think that accommodation of what he's done is not only superb, but it's also reassuring for those people that are religious and bright. Because I think at the end of the day, like, his audience is not necessarily the entire general populace of people and women, both women and men and children and everything in between. He's addressing particular audience of people that are receptive to his ideologies, and at the end of the day, I do think that there are radicals in his group. Maybe potentially there's a majority of radicals in his group, like, in following, but there's people like more me, and I think maybe you, that are in there that are more centrist and also very interested in him.
I'd say our types are his majority, and the extremes are like
really?
the fringe. Yes, 100%. I feel
I'm
like
in
the
some
media
Jordan
portrays
Peterson
him.
groups.
The media portrays him like he's the leader of some fucking
Cult,
like
yeah.
and he's a fucking university lecturer in psychology. You know what I mean? Like, the people who watch him and listen to him are usually well educated, like decent people, and I think he's the only person who speaks, like, when it comes to the matter of gender, as if men aren't some fucking oppressors. You know, as if today, the majority of people today now aren't, like, all out to get women. And it's refreshing, because that's who I identify with, someone who can talk about the matters and be open about them and be critical on things, whether they hurt anyone's feelings or not. But I'm not oppressing anyone. I'm not causing any fights. I'm not beating my wife. I'm not controlling the finances, as they might say. I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, I think he's a good role model. I think his wife would fucking love the shit out of him. I think he'd be a great husband.
Yeah. I think... Oh. See, I appreciate your thoughts on that. Sounds like I'm giving a political, like, sermon. But, no, I appreciate your thoughts, and I think it's nice to see somebody at least approaching discussions in a way, and especially Jordan Peterson, like, approaching discussions in a way in which elephants in the room are addressed. Because I think that's the point. The reason why he has amassed such a massive following, even from a basic psychological perspective, is people like what they're hearing, whether they may consciously recognize that or not. And I think the left have definitely dominated some of the news outlets, perhaps in America and stuff. That's why they've got such a strong focus on him being this tyrant. But I think they've painted him as this dictator fascist, on the right-hand side of the political spectrum. Yeah. Dictator, fascist, like, crazy person that's trying to conserve the traditional patriarchy by making up all these arguments that attack it. But to me, the way that I view it is, it's like I was listening to a song. I know this is a weird analogy, airy-fairy again, but I was listening to a song that, what was it? It's called Everybody Dance. It's quite cool. Anyway, but I was listening to the song, and what she was saying was, at the end of the day, like, it was a real poppy, like, real happy, groovy 80s song, 60s maybe song, and she was basically saying in the lyrics, like, woo, woo, everybody dance, blah, blah, blah. But then she said, music is at the center of making people happy, and it doesn't matter what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Very airy-fairy. But to me, the way that I interpreted the song was like, at the core, at the essential level of a lot of topics that we do like to prance around, there are ideas that connect us. And I think Jordan Peterson reminds me that there are certain lenses in which we can view the world, and how we connect to it is just a reminder of our own lenses, and all those people that are crazy against him do my head in, because I don't think that they're realizing the point. The reason why he's got that mass following, again, is because people need to hear what he's got to say. That's it. And I think he always says that as well. perhaps there's academics in there that disagree with some of what he says, but that's the fucking point of being an academic and being bright. You don't have to agree with what everybody says. You just have to understand their core points and what they're trying to do, and maybe agree and maybe not. I personally am in. I was in like maybe 7 Jordan Peterson groups on Facebook.
Yeah.
A lot of what was posted was fucked from a lot of them, and I don't know if it was out of rhetoric because they felt attacked by the left because of the portrayal of Jordan Peterson in a lot of media.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing, I'm going to simplify it and say that's the reason why those 7 groups were disgusting. But psychologically, I highly doubt that's just one variable that's gone into work to make them all hateful creatures. But yeah, I was in 7 groups for Jordan Peterson.
Jeez.
Because I'm psycho like that, and I just decided to join 7 groups. But I also joined 7 psychoanalytic groups and stuff like that. So
I would have thought they were very
Jungian psych.
similar, to be honest. Like, there'd be a lot of crossover between those groups.
Oh, no. Not between Jungian psych. No. Oh, well, maybe, but
Well, there'd be a
it's
lot of
different
people who are
field
just
of psych.
interested in psychology in general who would hear him out because he's like one
Join
of
the
the biggest
Jordan
speakers in the world at the moment who happens to be a psych teacher.
You're right. And see, that's why I suppose I kind of did have a bias towards him. Like, he's a clinical psych, somebody I ought to. Oh, look, I'm still in it. Look. I'll read the first status just to see what it says.
Yeah.
It's from Henry Gentles, who says, somebody is 100% right. Trump has bailed out the rich billionaires and left the workers with some crumbs that fell on the floor. Trump has bailed out the rich billionaires and left the workers with some crumbs that fell on the floor.
So they're anti-Trump.
Oh, there we go. Or Trump's stunning incompetence has the world horrified. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a type of cognitive bias. Blah, blah, we already know. Essentially low ability people, blah, blah. The combination of blah, blah. Why is this Henry guy posting so much?
It sounds like you scared all the rest off because you were like real critical of them, and they were like,
I
better
don't
get over it.
post. I don't post on Facebook, bitch. So I'm one of those passive people that don't actually. That's why.
You call me bitch, and then you say you're passive.
well, it's a compliment, isn't it? So I'm sorry you personalised that as an insult, basically, but
No, I'm just pointing out the contradiction there.
that's what's ironic, and that's why I find it funny. But Jamal, for example, this is the second guy that's not the same guy. He says everyone in this group is terrible at insults. Prove me wrong. Like. And then somebody's like,
I mean, like, I'm sure I've heard...
all these comments, wait, let's look at the comments. No, your name is like somebody tried to make a black dude's name even more retarded. Same with the face. Jamal was right. Then another guy goes, I'm giving you the ultimate insult. I'm blocking you forever. Try, and then somebody says, try again, Simich rapist. Somebody says, spoken like a Republican. You're trying to send me to jail. Your favorite music genre is grindcore and your feet smell like rancid pickles. Actually, I think they're good at... See, like, I think there are a lot of Jordan Peterson's base is, like, ironically bright, I think, sometimes.
Trolly.
Yeah. They're trolly because it's easier to address that than the substance of what they think, you know? And I think that's a good way to kind of deal with it. Like, they're all trolly because...
Sorry.
Oh, congratulations.
I just mean like he's listening to me now.
Oh, cool. We were just discussing Jordan Peterson and his intellectual ideologies. Hey. This is why you don't tell me there's somebody who's a loser.
Leave a message down the bottom. Tell us who's watching. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's probably just like my YouTube reloading itself and like telling me that I'm someone new. I don't know,
But you've just put emphasis on it now, and now they might be afraid to do that, you know?
oh, fair enough. But I'm just saying, like, if you feel so inclined to drop a message and say g'day, then you're quite welcome to.
No, just say effing g'day, mate. How about that?
How the fuck are ya?
Yeah. They're probably Australian,
Um,
maybe.
yeah, oh, look, don't get me wrong, well, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of trolls who support him. But as far as like actual, like, toxic, sexist, racist people, I would, my assumption would be the people into that shit would not actually, one, understand his stuff, or identify with it properly. I think maybe they've heard about him as much as what feminist groups have heard about him, and they've just declared their stance with him because they think he's on the opposite side to their enemies. But
Yeah.
you know, I think there's, I don't know.
Well, I think the left has painted him as like a demagogue, you know, like this person that capitalized on the desires and prejudices of these men, basically, that want some sort of voice to say, to kind of spout perhaps some racist sentiments or something. But I think that's besides the point. I think with any populist, there's always going to be outliers that influence the average perception of the population in that group or audience. But I think the difference is the populace that's behind him on average distributed or representative. Like if his main people, it is a representative sample of a lot of what they think. That's disgusting. Some of what they do say is disgusting, and I just hope they're extreme outliers, because if they're not, then we have people in there and his following that scarily
Thing is though, even if like all of his listeners were racist, sexist assholes, it doesn't make what he's saying that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. But they could use it as a platform to spout more hate. That's the problem. If they think that this person's advocating for their ideology, they're going to spout from everywhere. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I suppose the stake in the grass is that if his ideas are being spoken about in a correct way, that he's trying to portray them, and I don't think that. I think his words are twisted massively from what he wants to portray, and I think you're right there. Yeah, I think you're right there.
Well, to bring it in nice and tight, I don't think I'm one of them that's portraying it wrong, you know what I mean?
Nah,
I don't think I am. I just...
Well, have you read his book?
I haven't read his book.
Read his fucking book.
12 Rules for Life.
An Antidote to Chaos. Read it. Because if you're a follower and you want to understand his thoughts, that's written by him, so...
I've got a mate who's got the book, and I just read through it.
Well, follow it and read it. Especially if you're reading The Pillars of Earth, so... Yeah.
So I don't know if he got it, but he got another book. He got
well, I'll send you mine. I've got Gatorade all spilt throughout it.
Sam, I don't know how you do it.
I got a mate of mine from work who was a Christian into Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins, and now he's an atheist with me. And
Christopher Hawkins. I don't know much about him.
Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. You don't know either of those two?
Wait, say it again?
Richard Dawkins
Yeah.
and Christopher Hitchens.
No.
They're like...
Well, I've heard the names, but...
They're like the most outspoken,
I know who Richard Dawkins is. He's the one that's been crazy and took on some religious people in those public panel discussions about religion, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's funny. He's funny. I say crazy because he doesn't seem crazy, but like, it's so extreme. It's two extremes meeting two extremes, so the conversation seems insane when you listen to it.
Can't keep it active all the time, though.
Yeah, I don't know Christopher Hitchens. I haven't looked at his work.
Well, Dawkins is always spoken about like he's really rude and he's really direct, but Dawkins is a pussy compared to fucking Hitchens. And don't get me wrong, I love them both, but yeah, he's very well spoken. He's a very really knowledgeable person, and he'll be in debates and stuff, and he would just annihilate. Now, Hitchens is dead. He died of cancer like a few years ago.
Oh, poor guy.
So he's like a legend that all these other guys, are inspired by. But they had a couple of public videos where him, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and Daniel Dennett get together and they talk, and they're pretty much all on the same page, but they're all got their different expertise. You'd know Dennett, of course.
No, I'm dumb.
Daniel Dennett is like a philosopher.
No, I'm dumb.
Well, you should get into him because he's great.
He's an American philosopher. Like, yeah, I don't know him.
No, he's good. He's good.
Fuck Americans. How about that? I don't listen to American philosophers.
Well, no, fuck you.
Lies. How about you get out of the echo chamber? Look, there's 3 white patriarchal men you've got going for you.
Here we go.
Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Jordan Peterson. What populist did you just crawl out of?
Well,
no, I'm kidding, but...
Sam Harris and probably Richard Dawkins debate Jordan Peterson for quite a bit.
It doesn't change the fact that they're...
Well, I respect both sides is what I'm saying here, is that, like, Sam Harris had quite an issue with Peterson on his religious views, and they've had, like, a few talks
I've seen
about it together.
Sam Harris is dumb. I don't think he's as articulate as Jordan Peterson. He's not precise sometimes with his language.
Mm.
Do you think so, or he is?
I pretty much listen to every podcast Sam Harris puts out.
Do you think he's smart?
I think he's very smart.
Oh.
I think where he gets tangled up and where most people like disagree with him is on his views on meditation and that kind of stuff. But I do think he's going along a right path there, but I don't know. I've got my views about like alternate ways where you can achieve similar results, and other like gurus and stuff that talk about meditation and stuff that have a different method that he's basically like just said like he doesn't see any value in their thing. Like Alan Watts. I love Alan Watts. And so, there's bits and pieces of his stuff that like I don't just like 100% wholeheartedly accept.
Yeah.
But I think his conversation on certain topics and the people he brings into his podcast to talk like makes for a really stimulating sort of bi-weekly conversation.
Yeah.
And they get to the nitty-gritties of a lot of stuff.
Look, sadistic, Brandon. If you find awesome podcasts that you want somebody like-minded to watch, send it to me, because I've actually been kind of interested in discussing popular media and kind of ideologues like Sam Harris, Alan Watts, Jordan Peterson. There's another, I think he's Russian philosopher that always comes up. It starts with Z. Slavoj Žižek. I haven't looked at his work just because I do know a lot of people have issues with him. But, it's a Slovenian philosopher. Yeah, him. I want to look at his works more closely.
Fair enough.
But, yeah, if you ever get bored, because I think you're right. Like, I do think that there will be moot points that they can create that's awesome for facilitating conversation, but I think that when I categorized Sam Harris as just dumb and I didn't want to listen to him, I lied, because my brother, he's very into Sam Harris, Alan Watts, and stuff like that, and he almost gives me that Jordan Peterson vibe too. He hasn't cited him, but he gives me that vibe. Like, he's quite sharp with his words as well. So I think I'm just eerie about. I think I just have a bias towards perhaps interpreting some of their works. But that said, go you for being kind of branching out a bit and looking at people like that. Because I don't really interact with much people that do. Like, they'll cite something, but they're not actually, they're not following podcasts that interrelate with what it's about. Which is kind of like me. Kind of like a differ.
Or
yeah.
basically, like, the way I see the landscape is, like, I watched pretty much all of Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens stuff as soon as I started getting into them, because they were, like, big people who could challenge the beliefs that I still had at the time that I was questioning myself.
Yeah.
About, Christianity and whatnot, and Hitchens could go to the jugular when it came to, like, the politics of religion and how it's happened around the world and stuff, and he'd debate any of the biggest speakers on Christianity and destroy them. And Dawkins would actually be the more polite of the two, even though he comes across as really British and pompous.
Yeah.
But
he's very well spoken.
He is very well spoken, but he backs up his knowledge claims with evolutionary biology, which is probably the most relevant point as to whether or not, not so much to whether a god exists, but to whether or not evolution is real. And if evolution is real, then that, like, cuts out a lot of the history of humanity that Christianity thinks is real. And so he's good just to listen to just on the point of science. Like, he can talk about just his topics even when he's not talking about religion, and he's fantastic. But what happened with him, which is sad, is he's just getting old, like, and I think he's falling a bit into the wanting to, like, broaden his audience by appealing to the audience.
Yeah.
So he's getting a bit softer in his older age, and I still love him. He's like a great grandpa. And I've seen him live actually with John Safran.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Which me and my mate from work went and saw.
Is that the same one with the partner?
No,
that kind of
different one. But I went and saw Brian Cox with that bloke. Brian Cox, the astrophysicist.
Is that the bloke? Oh no. Oh, I don't know him.
He's cool. He's a British fella, and he does speeches about, like, black holes and just all the cool shit in space, basically. I don't know. I can't be more specific about the type of things he's into, but he's a good speaker on those things. My other mate, he said he didn't want to go see him because he's got weird lips. I don't know if that narrows it down.
Brian Cox?
Yeah.
Tell him your mate's stupid, but
I told him he was being silly, and he's like,
how does he have weird lips?
Brian Cox.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know. There is something
his lips are
unusual
more.
about him.
No, I think you're right. I'm getting a really uneasy vibe when I look at him, and I don't know why. I really don't know why. But then again,
relevant anyway.
It's very relevant. If I trust my intuition, it's very relevant. But in saying that, I think it's his eyes. His eyes seem very discerning almost. In some pictures, like, it's scary.
I think part of it is that you assume he's quite young, but he's actually quite a lot older than you think he is. So if he looks weird, it's probably to do with that.
Do you know what? You're actually really right, because I noticed the graying in his hair doesn't correlate with his youthfulness. You're right. It might be something symmetrically orientated like that. Who knows? But
He had this bloke on his stage performance who would come out every like 20 minutes, half an hour, and do a little bit of comedy, because some of the space stuff could get really deep and really like intellectual. And they just had this other guy come out just to like break it up and like keep people on track. And one of his jokes was he comes out and he goes, "You know what the biggest joke is?" And this guy, he looked older, like he sort of looked like an old sort of Robin Williams type. He was like, the funniest thing is that Brian Cox is actually older than me, but you'd never guess that. And everyone was like, "What the fuck?" So, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. But yeah, going back a couple of steps, Hitchens is dead, Dawkins is old, and I feel like Sam Harris is just someone moving into that space. He was never as extreme as either of those two, but I think in some ways he's a bit more reserved, but in other ways he's a bit more broad, and he just talks with different experts in different fields each week on his podcast, and he's actually like a lot more respectful in the way he speaks than the other two generally. Like he comes across a lot more diplomatic, but that's not to say he doesn't have his moments too where he completely destroys people who are debating him and stuff. But yeah, he was pretty scathing on Jordan Peterson, and they've had like 2 or 3 long conversations in podcasts.
Did they come to any conclusion? Was there a clear winner between the two?
I think at first he thought that Jordan Peterson was very dishonest in the way he presents himself, and his views. And I think he got to the conclusion where he doesn't think he's dishonest, but he still disagrees with like the way he portrays, like God and religion and that kind of stuff. Like and that's fine. But like, I think as a compliment, even though I disagree with Jordan Peterson on religion, I think he's the best speaker on religion that there's ever been. You know what I mean? Like, if I was trying to help a Christian pick someone who would most strengthen their side, I'd pick Jordan Peterson for them. Even though
come on, that's a stretch.
Why?
I think that would be a stretch, because
who would you pick that would be a better speaker on religion than Jordan Peterson?
I think because religion deals with the intangible, the things that can't necessarily be explained by science, and I think perhaps tying in tangible qualities, Jordan Peterson might be able to do that would accentuate how much more tangible faith is and religion is. But I think at its core, what makes religion such a motivating force is the mystery, the unknown. And I think Jordan Peterson does recognize that when he cites Carl Jung. He's talked about Carl Jung in his talks, but I don't think he's talked about it. And I think that's where Sam Harris would go with that. Like, I don't know what Sam Harris has said, but I do think that I can tell just through his eyes, Jordan Peterson's eyes, that I know how dumb does it sound, but I can just tell that when he conveys points, it's a very reduced argument. So even though it may not seem reduced, you can see him buffer at certain points, like Jordan Peterson, when he's trying to articulate what he says. And when he buffers, you know that there's something there that somebody could bring up to counter-oppose what he's saying. And I think if you're bright enough or quick enough, I think you would be able to get a chance in there that would kind of, I don't know, but anyways, the point is religion is very big for mystery and the unknown, and I don't know if Jordan Peterson would be the correct person to address with the mystery and the unknown. The correct people might be conspiracy theorists. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know.
I think Christian speakers on the matter have always come at it from the same angle.
You're right.
And so they've ran out of arguments for it along those lines, and I think Jordan Peterson is refreshing on the topic because he puts it into scientific and like psychological terms more than anything. Like he talks about why it is that people could have come up with these concepts in the first place, rather than, oh, this is 100% true, this is the way God wants you to be, so let's do it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, like, it is a side argument, it is a different argument that's usually brought up, but it is one that is, like, reasonably fresh, and you can explore and actually get something out of it, get something out of religion. And there's a whole audience of people who don't side with religious stuff because of how literal and how
Crazy
like,
it can seem, yeah.
medieval it's all been. And he is someone that could say, hey, religion has something for those people like you who don't want to be just, you know, like someone following literal stuff that hasn't been proven. He's someone that can say his morals is like a story based landscape that you can get something out of, and you can get value in yourself and others out of, and you don't even have to 100% believe it to get that.
Yeah. And that's like, I think I sent you a picture if you want to have a quick look at it, but it's basically it's from The Horse's Mouth. He says, Jordan Peterson wrote, the entire Bible can be reasonably considered poetry, maybe even a single long poem. The Bible is poetry partly because of the beauty of its language, but more importantly, because its structures hints at realities that remain so complex that they are still expressed most suitably in narrative and metaphor. This is a characteristic of genuine art, which aims at expressing the still inexpressible, and that concerns itself with, again, the unknown and mystery. And I think what's beautiful, if you do take a look at the picture, because there's a thing it's a remarkable, he says, Chris Harrison has produced a remarkable map of the cross references in the Bible, providing a quick visual indicator of its tremendous depth of meaning. But I do agree, like, that's why I look at religion with a very unscrupulous lens, because I think that would be my main argument maybe for it, would be, I do think a lot of religion is dealing with the unknown, and if that's the case, why is it the case that things are still unexpressible with the language that we have? They're fillers for something else, and if we can't address those fillers, all the more power to you to try to seek comfort in those fillers.
I only just realised what the time is.
Oh yeah, you're probably tired.
No, I'm not though, that's the thing. I thought it was like, it felt like maybe 1 or 2 o'clock to me.
Dang.
So that's like scary. But
Well, cool. Feel free to go to bed. See ya.
no. Sorry,
Peace out, bitch.
Yeah, no, look, I'll stay a bit longer anyway. I'll probably try and get up around 2 or 3 o'clock, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was gonna say, well, you get up at 12. Ew.
Yeah, well, my next shift's the night shifts again, so like technically staying up late is good. But at the same time, I need to be able to like help out around the house and stuff on my days off.
Well, since you can divide the role of caregiver, perhaps that might be more unmutable.
Yeah.
I'm so dry.
Look, sorry to like stay on the point so much, but like when it comes back to that
Peace
stuff,
out. No, I don't want to. No.
that stuff I was talking about earlier with like the gender issues and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I feel quite conflicted on it because on one hand, I feel like like often is the case, it would be easy just to like give up and say like, oh, I'm just not going to have any part in this conversation anymore because people get offended when you say anything. And my mates basically said like, if you put things out there saying like how you feel on the topics of like gender pay gap and, you know, about anything that sounds like it might be sexist, even if it's not, then it's not going to go down with her. And like I find that really restrictive, and like I don't bow down to anyone who ever asks me to do that, you know what I mean? But I've said to him like, I'm just not going to talk about it with her anymore.
Yeah.
Which I can live with. Because I really like her.
Is she quite bright? Is she quite bright?
Oh,
like,
she is, yeah, she's great. Like, she's really cool, and I just didn't realise there was any problem until he brought it up.
Oh, wow.
There's other issues at play that are completely unrelated that, oh shit, that I need to like make up for. Like, I've made a bit of a dick of myself.
Why? When you're drunk?
Yeah.
What happens?
I don't know, it's a bit embarrassing to be honest.
No.
Like for live YouTube, it's a bit embarrassing. But yeah, I made a dick of myself basically, and I was just asking him like ways that I could sort of make up for it, and he brought that up.
No.
So in one hand, I'm like, oh well, I asked for that advice, and on the other hand, I feel like it's something very difficult for me to be able to actually do.
Shit.
But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have asked him if I didn't actually respect him and his missus. You know what I mean? Like, 1 minute we're fucking all great friends, and the next minute I feel like I've just like put my foot in it and like done something that's going to be hard to sort of.
Well, it's hard to
rectify.
like think about the situation. Yeah, it's hard to think about the situation. What was done? Like, is there any way you can mute the thing? So
Well, she had a sore back, right? That
Yeah.
night, like she'd been having a bad back, and I don't even remember exactly what happened. But apparently, I've hurt her back further, and
Oh no.
like yeah, so it's hard to get
shit,
a
yeah.
proper
Read on the
understanding
situation.
of what exactly I did. But it wasn't good, whatever it was. And
Yeah.
I think because she's reasonably new to the group, like this isn't a good first impression. Like it's not even a first impression, but it's like a fairly early impression in what I would say should be a long friendship.
Oh
You know,
no.
considering-
Yeah. Hilarious.
Considering how long I've known like her partner for, and how much I get along with him, and you know he's like one of my best friends. We don't see each other a lot,
Yeah.
so it's, you know, it's sad for me to know that I've sort of like made a bad impression. But to then to find out that it's been tied with other things that are unrelated to it, as if I'm a toxic male, you know, it just, it's really hard to like fight the urge to become like quite,
Aggressive. Yeah.
like, yeah, not physically obviously, but
Yeah, but like not feel. Yeah, that's tough, and I think that goes back to like that idea that because the perception has been coloured, now ambiguous and neutral stimuli or responses have now been coloured.
Yeah.
Now they've been associated with that, and there's nothing you can do per se to uncolour it. It's just, it's honestly just. Because I think it's really a disestablished relationship with trust, right? Like, trust has been broken for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. Trust has been broken, so that's put into question consistencies and whether they want to continue to be vulnerable around particular situations. And that's fair, but I do think, like, if your friend has known you for how many years he has, why the heck is he silent? I personally just think sometimes with relationships they can become so insular, like romantic relationships, that it's hard to break a mold as a friend, no matter how long you've known each other. You can see friends for 20 years and their partner comes in between it.
Yeah.
And I think that's an issue that is directly related to how your friends see the world. And yeah, that's tough. I'm sorry. Yeah, not sorry, but like,
It is something that
good
I've
luck with
noticed
that.
before I even came to this. Like, I noticed it between other friends and her and him. On certain topics, like, you know, she stood on this matter in a certain way, and everyone else was stood on a different way of looking at it. But since then, he's sort of been forced to change his mind and to bend to it.
Well, I think force is a strong word. I think more obliged is a better,
Manipulated,
no,
maybe.
stop. I think give him the strongest interpretation that he can see through some BS as well. You know, you've known him for how many years?
Well, that's
so
the thing.
know.
Like, I know where he stood on it when it was early, and where he was still like, you know, telling me how he felt about it.
Oh, so
but then since then he's basically like adopted her philosophy on it completely, and I think that's part of him trying to be a good partner and you know what I mean, like do the right thing by her. But like from the other perspective, it's sort of like, well, you've backflipped on this thing, and now you're telling us to also backflip on this thing to some degree. And I remember when I spoke to him originally about the bank accounts and stuff.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, like you make some good points. Like I can understand why you say that. And now he's saying it as if
the thing is like my better question to you is like, was that his true thoughts, or was he being socially imitating for the sake of your pleasure?
Well, I think he challenged originally on the matter, so he wasn't afraid to challenge it.
Well, then maybe that was his true thoughts, and he wasn't initially ambiguous. He was actually more for it, and the fact that his partner has come along has just reconditioned that for him, made it not this airy-fairy thing, but more conditioned. Like he's got a base, because I think a lot of times some people use excuses and facades that they don't think this unless they've got good reason, and now that he's got a partner, it could be put under a shroud of like, I didn't really I really did kind of agree with your reasoning, but I still disagree, and that could be his ammunition to say, you know, like, I actually, personally, if I was to be 100% honest with myself and authentic, I don't actually agree with some of what you've said, and that's where a better read of what exactly his true thoughts were. And that's why I think the big connection with friends and stuff is...
You there? Hello? I lost you. Where'd you go?
That's why like personally, it's not that I don't personally trust people. I think I heard a better saying that I don't believe in people, so when people tell me what they think, I don't believe it. And I think perhaps that could be a thing that, I don't know, you look at, like believing people.
Well, here's the thing though, like, I don't want to be wrong on the matter. Like, I don't want to be saying shit and believing it just because I want to believe it, or because I've not heard any other points of view or whatever. And I've said that to him, and I've said that I'm open to having that discussion / debate with people on the matter. But what I kind of get is that either there's someone that will continue to tell me things that I've already heard, that I've heard further reasoning from a different point of view, which I think overrides it, or they get to a point where they're just like, I don't really want to talk about it anymore. So, like, is there anything in particular, and just be direct, like, that you think stands out more about what I say as being incorrect? Or is it more that when you think about the people I bring up or the public speakers who talk on the matter, you
Yeah.
disagree with them. Like,
To be honest, I think perhaps it's less to do with you and your kind of what you're conveying. I think it might be to do with implicit biases, things that are coloring people's perspectives. And I think at the end of the day, like, I think everybody's prone to implicit biases, but I do think that when it comes to certain conversational topics, there are always going to be unspoken rules about social etiquette. It always seems to be that way, at least. And depending upon the audience, you have to goddamn tailor it. Like, even with friends, you've got to tailor your goddamn conversation, especially with partners, personally. And if, for example, you don't like their partner, my recommendation is you don't say it. Like, or you don't express any conflict with them, because I know it's a sweep it under the rug approach, but people are implicitly retarded. Maybe not explicitly, but implicitly retarded, that their behaviour is not going to change regardless, or it's going to be very, very hard to change certain habits and thoughts.
I get that. Like, I understand that side of it.
Yeah.
My question to you is, like, is there anything about, like, the philosophies I'm espousing in particular that you disagree with? Like,
Well, not necessarily that I can say. Like, you seem reasonable if you're open to a discussion, but no.
because look, the way I'm interpreting it from people in general is that they feel for the victimization that's occurred to women over the years.
The historic abuse.
And I 100% understand that. But I think that overrides any other nuanced conversation anywhere on any similar topic. It's basically if either you decide to show your allegiance to what's the word, equity, otherwise you're an enemy.
See, I think that's, if I was to bring up something with your mentality, I think it's very black and white. And I think that can be damaging. Like, and I think when you categorize yourself as, like, you go to a hospital to be fixed, not to be told you're beautiful, per se. Like, I think that's a very black way of categorizing a situation, and you never
it's really
took into
racist
account.
of you to say that.
No.
That's a joke.
I know. I didn't want to laugh at it because it wasn't funny. But, yeah. And I think that black and white mentality is going to cost you. It's going to cost friends.
Well, I mean, it has, for sure. But, like there's still got to be a bottom line there. And like,
no, see, like, that's black and white again. Like, why does there have to be a bottom line?
Well, what I'm saying is, like, if you want me to sit around and, like, make little necklaces out of flowers and discuss the finer points of women and how great they are and how much they deserve a better chance, I could do that if you want me to, alright?
I don't want you to do that. It's
right.
what your friends want, bitch. Right?
No, look, I'm not even talking about that. Like, I'm just saying, like, the philosophy itself, like,
yeah.
you know, I don't know. Because, like, here's the thing, like, a lot of my friends are women. Like, I like being around women. A lot of the time I like being around them more than men. I find, you know, a lot of the traits, like we were talking about earlier, about being open to conversation and being
Agreeable,
respectful and agreeable, all those things are great for being around people and being around friends. And, you know, there's definitely times where that's what you need more than anything in a situation. Again, I don't like to tie that to women in particular, or femaleness, you know, because there's plenty of men that espouse those qualities as well, and I'm great friends with them too. And I'd like to think that I've got some of those as well. But the way I see it...
that sounds more like an ego problem, right? Like, you're trying to control your perception, like, with kind of the dynamic, perhaps because you've consulted with a lot of women and you're friends with them and you like their nature or whatever, their essence, like perhaps you are more upset with yourself that you've made that bad impression, and that's less to do with them and more to do with you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like shit about that. I guess I don't know whether I'm being. I don't know if that's what I'm actually talking about, or whether I'm just talking about
Yeah.
the topic of gender relations as a whole.
I think you're talking about that, to be honest. I think you're projecting. If I was to try to psychoanalyze, like I think, I don't, well, it doesn't matter what I think, but I do think, yeah, I think there's a degree of projection occurring because something's been triggered. And I think you have to address why you're feeling a certain way in that dynamic, and that might take a few weeks, days, months to figure out, but that's a question only you can really assess.
Well, look, I think you're right, but my thing is that I was talking about these topics well long before I even met her. You know what I mean? So it's not just like
matter.
a response to that. So the two like occupy different parts of my mind, and they combined are a very complex topic. But you know, I want to be able to.
That's the difference. That you're not assessing the moment, are you? Like you have to assess the moment with them and look at how the moment affected the story between all of you guys. You can't sectionalize it and say that you have a story that needs to be looked at in assessment with that moment, because it's true. You can do that, and that's probably the likely nuanced edition, but in the situation with them, and perhaps long-running pervasive pattern you have with friends, there's probably going to be something that's deeper to do with something else. And I just think with friendships, you can't make it about yourself. Like, if it's about yourself, it's fucked. Like, even when you say I, it's charged. It's like you're seen as narcissistic, and that's why the word's lost meaning. But I think, yeah, that's just my interpretation, Brayden, and yeah, it might be a little harsh, but
no, it's good.
I think, yeah.
Like, so this is a situation where if you just agreed with everything I said, then I would feel fantastic. But nothing would be being fixed. So I'm glad you are critical.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's sort of
I've always
what I
been
would look for
critical.
in a psychologist, is someone who can actually like be honest and actually make you reflect rather than just make you feel like the best friend ever.
But see, that's where I would probably see. I think the reason why I'm being more friendly as to you is because I'm psychoanalyzing you. I'm trying to figure out those pervasive patterns, and then we can enter an analysis. But that said, I don't want to be in analysis with my friends. You know, like
Rule number one of psychology.
But you're not. Do you know what I mean? You're my friend. This isn't in a counsel session.
Yeah, but I don't think knowledge of the mind can be separated from friendships. I think if you have that awareness, you're going to bring it with you into the friendships you go into. It's just a matter of, can your friends hack it when you like explain some of that to them? And if they can't,
do you think? So there's the question. There's something. Do you think that they're being naive?
Well, I'm talking from a purely like
No, yes or no.
psychology with friends. I wasn't applying it to the situation I was just talking about. Because I'm talking about me and my friends that went into psychology, and then when we were told not to be psychologists to your friends, I just find that's like a difficult thing to ask.
Yeah, but I know, but I'm trying to relate it to the context now. Like, but do you think that's the case with your friends? Do you think that they've been naive? Like, do you think that they've been ignorant? Like, what do you think? Of your feelings and your being and your ideas, because they don't want to address them and they want to shirk away from them almost. Like, do you think, how does that make you feel? Like, bad?
I don't know, I guess I think there's a little bit of whatever I'm doing on my side of it that's biased, and taking it personally and focusing on myself is what's happened on the other side as well. And so if we were to both talk about the topics in their own category, in the right like tempo and cooperation, it would all be smooth with each other, because we've both combined the personal nature of the things that have happened with our worldviews and philosophies about these things. It's become complicated. So I wouldn't say they're naive. I'd just say that like they've not recognized the context in which I've said these things, which is like in a philosophical discussion type way, rather than, it's not like I'm perpetrating the oppression that they see. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see myself as part of that.
Well,
the
I
topic
suppose
itself.
my particular way, like if I was to be real critical, like especially what you said, like you don't want people that want the best for you per se. Like you want them to be critical, or you want them to bring into light something that may be friendship provoking. But obviously that differs between people, and I think at the end of the day, like your ideas sound very different from theirs, because I don't think that their perception of what you're doing and what you've said and your actions have been the best for them. And there's no way of talking it out, there's no way of fleshing it out per se, because that's not going to change very easily. The only way to do that is to restore trust, and if you can't do that, then they're gone. Both of them are gone as friends.
Well,
Or if you can't accommodate their paradigms, like their thoughts, then goodbye. Like, are you going to change your perspective?
I hear what you're saying. I don't think it's quite as that extreme.
No, but like,
Because-
answer it. Like, are you going to change it? Yes or no?
I mean, I've always said that I'm open to changing my mind on things presented the right reasoning and evidence. But from my discussions with him, which like we stayed up pretty much like we're doing now, except probably not quite as long, and we had a massive conversation about all sorts of things, because we hadn't caught up in ages, and because of this virus thing, we just had a phone call instead. And it was only in the last, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour or something, that this topic turned to this thing, and that I'd found out that that where their feelings were on certain matters. So like, so I'm obviously still great friends with him, even though we only see each other once in a while. And I still think I'm friends with her. Like, I still want to be friends with her. But where am I going with this? I don't think it's a matter of I have to change my philosophy to stay friends with them. I think it's only about how I communicate with them on those matters.
See, I disagree. Because I think in social interactions, there's always going to be a transaction, right? So regardless of whether it's about communication, there's always some sort of transfer that's occurring. So I think you have to be more precise when you're saying what you're saying, because I think you're generalizing it, but you have to be specific. Like, in this situation, is this going to come in between the relationship between all of you? Like, if they really think this, is this going to permeate and become a thing where he drops off the edge? Like, you're not friends anymore. How long have you known each other? Like, do you think this is going to be a rut in the hill, like, that you're not going to be able to recover from? Or is it recoverable? If you change your views, like...
I've known him... probably since I was about 23. So it's like...
Shit, that is ages.
Like almost a decade, let's say. Or maybe, maybe like 7 years. 7 or 8. And I've known her maybe in the last 2.
Wow. Okay.
There's been times of utter vulnerability that I've been in, where he's completely put me at ease and shown me that, like, basically he loves me, he trusts me, that he wants the best for me, and he was willing to show that in a way that, like, I think a lot of people would feel uncomfortable doing. So, like, I think it was that foundation pretty early on that, like, made me know he's a fucking fantastic, nice guy, but that over time, and not even that much time, I've realized very quickly how intelligent he is. And so you put those two things together, like extremely kind and extremely intelligent. He's just someone I fucking look up to heaps. And I've always told him that, but I guess I've never been able to show it as much as I would like to. I don't think the person I'd have to be to show it as much as he deserves it is a person that's much better than me.
Yeah.
I think I've tried putting into words for him, and I think he's very graciously just like accepted that and laughed it off and stuff. But I think he knows how awesome he is from my perspective. I've made it as clear as I can. I just don't think I'm ever able to be as awesome as he is in returning it.
Yeah.
So I fucking love this guy, right? And I think plenty of other people, like my missus loves him too. He's fucking fantastic. I think they lived together for a fair while because he lived with her ex, who's still part of our friendship group. And
oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, so as far as he's concerned, I think even if she was to completely cut me off, I think me and him could still share a phone call and know that we're like, you know, have that deep respect for each other, even if he loses more and more due to his missus not liking me. I think we'd still have that understanding and that friendship, even if it was just reminiscing on it. That was a bit different. I just think like her views on things are a lot more strict on certain topics, and like I've spoken to her about a few of them. We've had disagreements, but it wasn't like rage-inducing, like angry debates. It was just, you know, this is where I stand, so this is where I'm going to leave it, sort of thing. And
yeah,
me being like, you know, the person who likes to get into nitty-gritties might push it occasionally a little bit further than the boundaries she'd like, but I don't think it was ever something that she'd want to drop the whole friendship over. But I think, yeah, just the most recent stuff, yeah, it's something that I'm just gonna, I don't want to reduce it at all, because it is like, it's, you know, it's not just like this little thing that's silly, you know, it's like, you know, I need to make up for it, and I need to show that I'm like trustworthy again, and I don't think I'm going to do that by just jumping straight onto the debate bandwagon and like going on about all my stuff again. But
that's silly. Yeah,
I think like there is a way that can be navigated through it where we get back on good terms and things get better. But I still have views that she doesn't like, and she still has views I don't like, and we just don't like make that the central core of our friendship. I don't think I have to completely flip around and shave one side of my head and wear rainbow coloured necklaces and like, you know, like just
become a woman.
But yeah, at the same time, I don't think I'll be drinking too much more around them or.
Well, I think, I don't know, like if you look at it in terms of like the unconscious, like either unconsciously you felt some sort of way and you redirected it in a bad way when you were drunk because that's the way you felt, or there were lingering feelings that projected that way. You either felt angry with her or whatever, and that resulted in that. It's causal, right? So I think the issue thing, yeah.
Sorry,
What?
just to be clear, like, I wasn't aggressive with her that night. I was silly. Like, well, for one, I don't think I could stand properly. Like, that's how drunk I was.
Well,
And I
that's
think,
dumb.
and I think, like, I could stand, but I couldn't balance properly, put it that way.
Do you
And
remember
yeah,
what
it
was
is
said?
dumb.
No.
I don't remember
Like-
what. I remember up until a certain point in the night, but after that I don't. And I've relied on testimony to ask what kind of things I said. And basically the things that were said from me that are the worst that I could get from them is more just annoying sort of me wanting to hijack the music, because that's something I do when I get really drunk. I'm just like, oh yeah, I know a really good song, I'll go put it on. And they're like, yeah, nah, like we've heard your stuff for quite a bit, like we're over it now. And I'll be like, no, just one more. And like I could picture that happening. Like beyond that, like I got messy. I think I was very like huggy and touchy with all the blokes that were there, and I think I was like that with her as well.
Interesting.
And I think I've like put my balance on her whilst her back was bad, and I've heard it, but not being able to like give it the proper care and attention that I should have at the time, and just probably...
Nah, it's not about this. I'm going to be real. It's not about that. I don't think it's about the back. It's filler words for something else, and you all need to discuss it. So, well, if you guys are going to be authentic and real, you guys all need to discuss it. And I'm not going to address it because it's not my place. But I think at the end of the day, when I suggested that you take a full-on approach to dramatically agree with all of your views, it's beside the point, because I don't think that this is what we're talking about here.
So
but
what do you reckon it
anyways,
is?
no, I know what it is. And we're not, well, it's not that I know what it is. There's more stuff that you need to address in the situation. And that's going to take a really honest look at a lot of other things that isn't my place to look at. But that said, I think change, when it's implemented really minimally, is very effective, because it doesn't change the desirability of the perpetrator of you, right?